submission number 520 on 184. Over to you.
Okay.
If you want to sit down, you can sit down, or otherwise you can stand, whatever you feel comfortable doing.
I'm standing. So
Okay.
I'll stay. The first thing is that I found that this process rather daunting with having to read 700 plus pages of bump, as I call it, to find out the submission form that I was requested to fill out. Part of this process covered very little of the detail that was actually covered in the bump. The major concern I have is that this council has, in the time that I've been living here, arrived here in 1986 and boasted that it had the lowest amount of public debt for a council. To see now that you're at 240% of your revenue stream. If I ran my household business like that, I'd be bankrupted. I wouldn't have the equity to cover that, nor the ability to pay it, unlike the council, which has the ratepayers' pocket to continually bleed. Now, a lot of ratepayers in this community are like me in retirement age. We don't have additional income just to pull out of thin air. We have to make cuts somewhere. I'm fortunate that I'm not going to be on the breadline, but there will be some in this community that are, and they struggle. Your proposed rate increases for the next 3 years is not just 19% plus 19% plus 19%. That's compound. So it's not a 60% increase that we'll end up, or near 60%, it'll be more than that. I'm not a mathematician, and I'm not going to run the figures. Like a lot of the figures that were in that 700 pages that I read. The thing that annoys me is that we're going to end up with $53 million worth just down the road here, that you use the argument that the submitters of the last plan agreed to it. I don't think a lot of them went into detail as to what was going to happen with that swimming pool. We don't have to have the best, we just have to need what's functional. The same goes with every other bit of infrastructure that's failing in this community. Past councils have failed to plan for the future, and now we have to pick it up. To make it worse, you're using the credit card to pay for at least 50% of that stuff. I've been at the stage where my credit cards have been maxed out, and I know what it's like to pay them off. It's hard work. The ratepayers, not today, but into the future, are going to be paying all that debt. For what was in that submission form that I had to fill out, it's peanuts that you save to what you're going to have to spend to keep this city working. Forget about all the nice fluffy stuff. Concentrate on water, sewage, stormwater, roads, and rubbish. The recycling thing up the road here is a laughing stock. It's a laughing stock. I've just been talking to friends who have told me that rather than drive from the other end of the city to up here, it's easier to put it in their 240 litre bin. Now, the government, central government, was proposing that councils get a rubbish recycling plan in place. That's something that this council has to consider, because what you've got now is not working, is not fit for purpose. Yeah. Our water situation is appalling, and I don't believe the ratepayers are getting the full story of what's happening there. One thing I cannot understand is in the previous employment I had, the decision was made to contract out because it's cheaper. Contracting out's not cheap because everybody along the way wants to make a profit. The thing that I haven't been told is how much is this Wellington water costing us with the bureaucratic level that it's got above it, which is over and above the cost that you would have if you did that stuff in the house. You have to read today's Stuff News to see that Horowhenua District Council has pulled its water management back in-house to make savings. And I applaud this council to do the same. Pull your infrastructure for your three waters back into house how it used to be. We used to have men that knew exactly where every link and line in our infrastructure went. We don't now. We have a contractor who has to go and source that stuff, and that all comes at a cost to the ratepayer. I am not happy about having to pay over and above the rate of inflation and rate increases. Tenants that I have will be paying the costs that you put on me. I'm not going to be absorbed. Thank you.
Questions? Councillor Wheeler?
Okay, talk about the recycling sector being a laughing stock. What do you mean by that?
It's half a dozen skips up there that everybody from far end of the town has to drive up to if they decide they want to recycle. I don't know how much the contractor's making out of that, but I'm sure he's creaming it. A bin at the gate. I'm not going to pay somebody for a bin to recycle. I pay for a 240 litre. If you had a bin at my gate, which I would pay through rates, and I would hope that you would get me the best deal for that. That's why I say that thing's a laughing stock. It's taking bugger all of the recycling out of this city. And I'm surprised, Mr. Wheeler, that you've actually asked me that question. Why is it a laughing stock?
Well, you said that I don't have an issue with it at all.
There's a lot of ratepayers that do.
Councillor Bentley?
Thanks, Ken. So you would support the council rolling out curbside recycling in the year 3 of the long-term plan?
Yes, and I'd support without spending $500,000 on doing a water meters
Case study.
case study. Not needed. I've been on a water meter for 24 years. It tells me if I've got a water leak. I can walk at night and see places that got water leaks inside their boundary that are not being fixed. No need to waste money on a report to get somebody to tell you what you want to know when you should have a decision here. Wellington Regional Council has a policy to bring in water meters. Follow the lead. If it's going to cost money to put them in, do it. Because we will find out where our leaks are.
No case study, just get on with it.
Get on with it and do it. I've advocated that whenever it's come up on Facebook.
Thank you.
Also, rural communities on it
Yeah, and commercial.
and commercial.
Thank you.
Councillor Slade?
The only proviso I'd have to that is it doesn't go out for sale like Auckland.
Ken, thank you for coming in and presenting. When I look at your third to last sentence, I don't believe council has done enough to trim the fat from its long-term budget to bring its increases in line with the rate of inflation. Are there any particular areas, I mean, you've talked about recycling, but are there any particular areas?
Petroleum.
Sorry?
Petroleum.
Yes.
Okay. And I might say 700 pages. I found one page or 2 pages that gave me what the expenditure was by different groups moving forward.
Yeah.
Something about paving outside the railway station. Got a perfectly good path there, leave it. We spent money on a street down here somewhere that leads straight from the railway station into town. Nobody's provided what a cost benefit ratio of that was. All it did was pretty up the street. No need to do that. Wakatiki, Gibbons. Leave the intersections as they are at this stage. Totra Park Bridge. The biggest problem with Totra Park Bridge is the phasing of the bloody lights. If you're coming into Totra Park from town, you're lucky if you get 4 cars through. I've sat there some nights, three rotations to get through. Yes, the community is growing up on Bradley's farm, but I don't believe it's going to be that much of a problem to what we have now. That bridge can wait. There's other jobs around the city, and I can't remember what they all were. The biggest hole that I find in the budget is this thing sitting down the road that the ratepayers are forever putting their money in their pocket for. We don't need to be the biggest, we don't need to be the best. Nine is going to be the best when it's finished. So why are we spending money to compete with them? My day, you had a concrete hole in the ground with no cover. You use it in the summertime, or you use the river. I know we want to drag people into the city, but I don't think that thing is a viable business. I haven't seen what its income stream is, but I can guarantee its outgoing costs are damn sight more, and that's why private sector won't run it. It's a hole in the ground with water in it. That's my opinion of it. Communal bath, put it crudely.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks,
Thank you. So we've got our last submitted date. Burt's on his way up now. Okay. Here he is. Afternoon. Do you want to get your breath, Dave?
Yeah, let him catch his breath.
I'll give you a couple of minutes to get your breath. All right. Dave Burt, 461. Yeah, Dave, you can either stand or sit on the chair. It's up to you. All right, 461.
Getting up and down at my age is a challenge.
461. Oh, it's there. Okay. I'm just trying to find it. 461.
176.
There we go. Well, thank you, Dave.
Councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak to my submission. I submitted a document. I also completed an online submission. It's the form that I'll be speaking to, and for clarity here, my comments about rate increases refer to residential rates. I wish to start by acknowledging that Upper Hutt City Council, like other authorities, is underfunded for the range of activities it's charged with carrying out. In addition, prior decisions have left the council with expensive deficits to remedy in areas such as water infrastructure. Despite these challenges, there are 2 points I wish to make. Firstly, the high rates increases that are proposed for the initial triennium 24-25 through 26-27 represent a cumulative rates increase of more than 70% compared to the current financial year. I believe this is unaffordable for many people, and if this increase is judged necessary, then I believe it needs to be spread more evenly across the term of the LTP. The Upper Hutt LTP proposals differ from a number of other local authorities, and the magnitude of the proposed residential rate increase over the first 3 years, about 60% in total, compared to 46% for other cities in the region, and 47% for Greater Wellington Regional Council. I understand that a The driver for the very large increases proposed is the fiscal advantages that moving to a balanced budget will provide, and that what I'm proposing will come with some additional costs. However, while fiscal prudence is to be applauded, and as I'm sure the council is well aware, its role is to make decisions that consider not just the economic, but also the social, cultural, and environmental well-being of the Upper community. In my view, a lot of people will be severely impacted by the rates increase proposed, which will in turn adversely affect their ability to participate in the life of the city. This could mean less money spent supporting city businesses, or finding the costs of participating in the sport beyond their means, or less support for the Cosy Club as some examples. People affected will include, firstly, asset-rich but cash-poor homeowners who rely solely on super or other benefits for their income. Secondly, the growing group of homeowners with mortgages who, despite having one or two incomes, are struggling with living costs, as evidenced by the increasing number of people using food banks. Any renters, and these are often the most vulnerable and less resilient group, whose landlords increase rents to cover their increased rates, bills. What's disappointing to me is that it appears a decision that may place significant numbers of upper residents under severe financial pressure has been taken without any attempt to understand what the effects may be on the more vulnerable and less resilient sections of our community in particular, and more holistically on Upper City. At the very least, I urge that appropriate impacts analysis be carried out to understand the consequential financial and social impacts of the proposed rate increase trajectory on residents. This information could then be used to inform a decision about the level of the rate increases over the LTP period. The second point, briefly, I'd like to make is that I believe the proposal to cut the community development funding by millions of dollars is wrong. As already referred to, times are tough and will remain so for a good number of people for a good long time. It seems counterintuitive to me to remove social development funding at a time when it's more important than ever that the voices of the less resilient parts of our community are heard both at the council table and by council staff. In fact, in times such as these, I believe it's important we should be increasing the level of community support. To close, it's worth remembering the quote attributed to Mahatma Gandhi and others that society will be judged by how we treat our most vulnerable citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Now questions, Councillor Kerry.
Yeah, thank you. I agree wholeheartedly on the intent around community and vulnerable people, but I'm wondering where you got the figure for the community development. So are you talking about community grants or?
There's community grants, $6.7 million was the bit I saw in the consultation document that I could community grants and over the 10-year period. I've read right.
Not just grants. Yeah. Any other questions today? Councillor Holder.
Not so much a question, but you mentioned that a decision was taken. I think I just pointed out that it is very much a draft policy. We have not made decisions on this yet.
That's correct. That's quite right. My apologies.
Any other questions? So thank you. Thank you for taking the time. So with that, we will adjourn until 11 o'clock tomorrow morning.